Watching a lot of the interesting drama that's starting to occur out there on some of the big content creators out there on YouTube, I started wondering, is it possible that maybe Tim Pool, Jeremy from the Quartering, and Nerdrotic are actually agents of big tech? Interesting question. So, give you a little background. I do know a little bit about marketing. Part of a business degree I was working on covered that area heavily. I've had some small businesses where I've done my own marketing. Not always the best choice because you always have to divorce yourself from the idea of who your customer is and who you are in terms of outreach. What may reach you may not reach your target audience. So I'll give you a real quick story that I think is kind of illustrative. I was making I was going to make a radio buy, but I wasn't 100% sure whether that particular station had my target demographic in mind. And and my target demographic was actually seniors. And the gentleman I sat down with in our advertising department uh, mentioned, "Oh well, we have some big military bases on in this area. Don't you want to reach out to them?" And I was adamant, no, that's literally the worst demographic for me. I don't want that demographic at all. And one, because I'm a veteran, and so I know all the problems that come with my particular business at the time. That was literally the worst target audience, and they were also the bases were pretty much not in the best region for me to service, so they were problematic in many different ways. But my phone book advertising, way back in the day, that thing, uh, noted that I was a veteran because that helps sell your business in some places. So, interestingly enough, when I get done with the guy, after telling him my primary market is seniors and that the demographic I did not want under any circumstance was the military, they came up with a radio spot of a drill instructor barking out instructions, trying to be cutesy and all this other stuff. So the answer you have to wonder is, so why would the department making up the advertising deliberately ignore what I said the demographic was? Because they weren't paying attention to what I said, they went and looked at my phone book ad, noted that I was a veteran, and figured, oh, he'll like military stuff. If we put military stuff in, we'll sell to him. Because the advertisers, okay, ultimately, yeah, if they succeed, they want your ad to sell your product to the customer base. But the first person they need to sell to is you, the person buying the ad space. Uh, so, how this kind of fits in is we have a whole new world of advertising out there. Uh, Completely different ways we need to reach people because the old centralized methods are pretty much gone. So consider recently there was a big blow up between Tim Pool and the Quartering over Eliza Blue. Details are kind of irrelevant because it's not really, I don't particularly care about the story. But this thing turned into a big thing. All of a sudden, I'm looking, and YouTube is recommending all these different little small content providers talking about the Eliza Blue Tim Pool Quartering thing, and the Quartering was really hyping it up. Tim Pool ignored it for a while, and then eventually he decided to kind of address it and diffuse it. Now, one of the interesting things I thought was Tim Pool had pointed out that it appeared that there were a lot of agent provocateurs that were in his chats and in the comments section that seemed to be trying to spin up the situation, trying to create a fight between both the Quartering and Tim Pool and anybody else who was weighing in. Interestingly, all sides state that even though a lot of these people were saying, hey, if you don't come over to our way, we're going to unsubscribe, we're going to no longer be members, all this other stuff, both the Quartering and Tim Pool grew subscribers and memberships during that period. So, in fact, what was going on is, as Tim Pool suggests, and I agree with him, is that this whole thing was a promotion to boost Eliza Blue. Now, how does this work? Well, essentially, what ends up happening is essentially some kind of marketing firm, some kind of PR firm, basically starts inserting some kind of thought process into the internet sphere. People start picking up on it because it's deliberately it's not traditional marketing. It's essentially almost like a meme in the original sense of the meme, where you're trying to put a thought into somebody's head, and it's meant to be controversial. So, in the terms of the whole Eliza Blue affair, Eliza has a general background of somebody who is essentially kind of a good person crusader. And anybody who looks like they're going after her is going to kind of cause the white knight syndrome to occur. And if one knows how Tim Pool typically reacts to things, his initial reaction to a lot of drama is to step back and say nothing, which should, if you watch the pattern, you'll see that essentially it'll make the controversy get bigger and bigger. So essentially you get low-tier content creators who the only way they really get a lot of views is to tack in big names into their videos. Now, this video I'm creating is doing exactly the same thing, but I've picked a time after this is kind of mellowed out. It's not raging anymore because I'm more interested in trying to describe what's going on than I am getting clicks. But by including the big names, I will get some clicks just because of that. Okay, so once you create trending, you create views, and then you get essentially what you want. Now, the controversy itself is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is Eliza Blue's name. She went from somebody who was moderately well known to someone who is pretty well known. Even if not for what she was standing for or what the controversy was, her name is now known. So, mission successful from a marketer standpoint. Marketers know how this works in the modern age. The primary goal is to look for something that's going to create rage. If something is rage-worthy, eventually the top-tier content creators take the bait because they want to monetize it, and that's fine. I mean, that's their job, is to provide content that's going to draw people in who want to know about it so they can make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's clearly the marketers have figured out how to tap the system. And then essentially the low-tier creators try to tap into the trend, thus spreading whatever meme the marketers had in mind to spread around. We also see this recently with the whole Hogwarts Legacy thing. Now, think about it. Why is it a bunch of a very tiny, loud minority of woke people who believe J.K. Rowling is a transphobe is relevant? It's not particularly relevant. But now imagine what happens if you're a marketing guy and you know that if you start buzzing in the right places, the various woke people will pick it up. And then the woke people will pick it up, and then allies, like people in the Twitch stream who normally make their money off of gaming, decide, oh, I better pick a side here. So they'll start boosting the idea of, well, we're not going to show any of this, and that'll show them. And then it essentially starts the process where The Twitch streamers picked up the banner vowing not to promote, and then it begins to trend. Then the big providers pick up and report the controversy, and they laugh as the sales go ballistic because there's no way ever that these low-level woke people were ever going to derail this. And it's not the kind of thing. I mean, the true Harry Potter believers aren't going to be swayed by somebody being upset by J.K. Rowling. They're too in love with the characters, the story, the world, for the author to actually, for whatever the author is doing to alter their general view of things. So, everybody who basically ended up talking about the story ends up promoting it and turning it into a much bigger thing than it probably would have been. Ah, yes. Rings of power. Okay, so in this case, Amazon realized they had a bomb on their hands. Everything was showing that this was not going to work the way they thought they did. So what did they do? They deliberately embrace woke messaging in order to generate rage. Because they know the main audience who is going to watch this, they're not going to win them over one way or the other. So the only thing they can do is turn them into agents. By generating rage, the people who aren't happy with the messaging essentially amplify the messaging. So content creators amplify the bad advertising, and this ends up bringing in the curious. And the effect causes buzz for inactive consumers. So essentially, your people who actually go in and watch the videos and know about the Lord of the Rings and know about the Rings of Power are your active consumers. Your inactive consumers just are kind of looking, they're hoping for something new to watch, something to come in. And what ends up happening with all this, the top tier content providers jumping in, the low tier content providers trying to ride the wave, and then the curious people jumping in to look to see what's going on, it generates this buzz, even though it's bad buzz. But what ends up happening is the inactive consumers don't pick up the full thing. All they pick up is, oh, there's a Rings of Power. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. Oh, I like that. Maybe I'll watch that. That's all they're trying to do. So essentially, even though the inactive consumers don't actually pick up what's actually happening, they get repeated exposure to the brand. So the question comes up, understanding that bad advertising does two things. The active consumers, both for and against, get the curious to go look for themselves. The content creators amplify the bad advertising, bringing in more of the curious. The effect causes buzz for the inactive consumers who don't pick up on what's actually happening, and then they get repeated exposure. So, are the big content creators like Tim Pool, The Quartering, Nerdrotic, witting participants in this? I find that very doubtful. I'm sure at some point they realize that they're helping create buzz and everything else like that. And really, I don't see a problem with that because the people who are helping generate them money for the content they create want to see that. So they're giving their customers what they want. I see nothing wrong with that. And I believe their views on what they're saying, for the most part, are honest views, and they are what they actually believe to be the case. So it's not like they're just picking a position in order to generate views. I'm sure that happens sometimes, and it definitely happens in the lower tier creators. I think the upper tier creators realize that they can't, essentially, they're doing well because there is a view of authenticity. And if they just completely lost their minds and went and did something that was outside what people would expect them, they would lose viewers. So I don't, although they may be agents of marketing, I don't think they're doing it wittingly all the time. And if they do realize they are doing it, they're not doing it in a malicious manner. They're just delivering what their customers wanted. So I want to sum this up with somebody who's much wiser than I'll ever be in describing uh, really the best way to look at marketing in the first place.
By the way, if anyone here is in advertising or marketing, kill yourself.
So, what do you think? How aware are these content creators of the fact that they're aiding in the marketing process? Do you think there's a problem with it? Tell me what you think below in the comments section. Please smash the like button. And of course, if the YouTube algorithm brought you in here inadvertently, please consider subscribing to my channel. I cover a wide variety of eclectic subjects. And if somebody you know might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.